Sally. How do I describe Sally? In one word. Sally is the most beautiful human being. No, sorry, was. Sally was the most beautiful human being I had ever seen. Obviously, that was all before the incident with the serial killing and the giant insect. But I'll come to that. My name's Ethelreda. Thank you. Feminist. Anglo-Saxon scholar mother. I'm from Sunderland. I love science fiction. I have a PhD in astrophysics. And I'm a cleaner. Yes, that's right. A cleaner. Ask any academic these days, and they will tell you that having a PhD is no guarantee of a job. Without a particle accelerator, I'm functionally a manual worker. That's how I first met Sally, answering a job advert in the newsagent window for a cleaner, not an astrophysicist. Sally was, well, beautiful doesn't even begin to describe her. It was as if the goddess Athena had suddenly decided to move into a suburban house in Ealing. Raven-haired Sally, Sally of the milk-white skin, Sally with the jewel green eyes. But even on the first day I cleaned for her, I sensed there was something odd. She had looks that any woman would murder for, a house of her own, tons of money, judging by the objet d'art she had in every room. And yet she struck me as the loneliest person in the world. Well, second loneliest. I was new in the capital and didn't know anyone. London is to warmth and friendliness what Jacob Rees-Mogg is to warmth and friendliness. Say hello to someone at a bus stop in Sunderland and it's the start of a cheerful conversation. Say hello to someone at a bus stop in London and they hand over their wallet with a request not to stab them. The worst place in the world to be lonely is a big city. London has so much. Cafes, theatres, museums, art galleries, restaurants. But dear me, those places can be depressing when you only ever visit them on your own. Trying to acquire our best friend in London often seems as likely as opening a Saudi brewery. Just friendship would have been nice, but I was aching for a relationship. A feeling that was made worse because I'm bisexual. I mean, mathematically speaking, I should have double the chance of finding someone. So by not finding anyone, I felt twice the failure. It's not easy being bisexual. Some straight women think you're showing off. Some straight men think you want a threesome. Some lesbians think you're a traitor. Some gay men think you're a threat. And my gran thought bisexual meant I had sex twice a year. Most of my evenings in London were spent sitting alone in my tiny flat, reading science fiction, waiting for the spark from heaven to fall. Strangely enough, science fiction is a great way to make sense of bisexuality. Take teleport, like in Star Trek. Moving matter by temporarily converting it to energy depends on wave-particle duality. That is, subatomic particles can behave as both a particle and a wave simultaneously. As a bisexual, I can inhabit the space of a homosexual woman or a heterosexual woman simultaneously. Basically, what I'm saying is that subatomic particles are bisexual. Then there's Star Wars. A Jedi can do a lot with the Force, but even Yoda admits the one thing they find really hard is seeing the future. And there's a real life explanation for this. Heisenberg's uncertainty principle says the more you know about a particle's momentum, the less you can know about its position. And the more you know about its position, the less you can know about its momentum. Over my life, I've been homosexual, heterosexual, asexual, bisexual, not totally sure sexual, and totally bloody confused sexual. The more people try to define me strictly according to one label, the less accurate that label becomes. Heisenberg. Basically, Jedi don't have a gaydar. Or finally, take Doctor Who. Being bisexual in a heteronormative world is like trying to watch an episode written by Chris Chibnall. It just makes you angry. I promise I'm getting to the bit about the giant insect and the serial killing. At first, working for Sally was a dream. Admittedly, all that happened was that I popped round to her house and cleaned twice a week. But I was cleaning for someone so beautiful that I felt intoxicated by her looks. Then after 6 weeks, something odd happened. I arrived at Sally's house much earlier than usual. Just as I reached the house, I got a call on my mobile. It was Sally. Just to let you know, I won't need you to clean this afternoon, yeah? She purred. Well, I'm at your door right now, so I might as well, dear, I said. You're at the door, she cried, alarmed. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw her bedroom curtain twitch. Something wrong? I asked. No, nothing wrong at all. Yeah, she said quickly. It's just... She paused. I've got work to do at home today and I need you to be alone. Yeah, enjoy your afternoon off. I'll pay you, of course. I'll see you next week. And she hung up. But just before she hung up, I definitely heard a man's voice in the background. So there was a mystery. Why was she lying to me? There was one obvious explanation. She was seeing a man. Anywho, I didn't think any more of it. For the next couple of weeks, it was back to normal. A combination of cleaning and feeling lonelier and lonelier. Truth be told, I was ready to gang back to Sunderland. London felt like another planet. That's when the mystery deepened. I started spotting odd things while cleaning Sally's house. I found a set of keys under her bed with 2 key fobs. One, a metal disc with the word Kev on it. The other, a see-through plastic disc with the word Amsterdam on one side and a topless girl on the other. Definitely a bloke's keys. So what were they doing in her bedroom? Another time, I caught the scent of an expensive male cologne on the bed's headrest. Then the imprint of a working man's boot by the door, the button of a man's pair of jeans under the sink in the ensuite, an expensive man's silk tie stuffed in the bin. Slowly it dawned on me. She wasn't sleeping with a man. She was sleeping with a string of men. And yet, I never once saw anyone else round her house. No family, no friends. If you're having rompy-pompy with a string of lovers, why hide it if you're living alone? And why that original lie to me? Needless to say, I was now burning with curiosity. Her house was next to a little park. So, one day, I sat on a bench, a little out of sight, and listening to my Blake 7 audio adventures, I watched her house. I know it was wrong and stalkerish, but I just couldn't help myself. I didn't have long to wait. About 10 in the morning, I saw a young man pass by me. I know that Master Yoda warned against judging people by how they look. Judge me by my size, do you? But in those bits of Sunderland, which are as much a wretched hive of scum and villainy as Moss Isley Spaceport, judging people on how they look can prevent you getting glassed on a Friday night. And this one was a proper thug, believe me. The swagger, the spitting, the tattoos, the haircut, the clothes and the, what are you looking at? Look, I've seen all my life. The clincher was when he jumped over a puddle to avoid dirtying his very expensive trainers. His jacket rolled up and I could see he was carrying a knife. Knife! It was the size of a machete with one of those horrible serrated blades. So when he knocked on Sally's door and she let him in, I was shocked. Did she like rough sex with thugs? How twisted would that be? All I knew was if Sally was carrying on with men like him, this wasn't a bit of fun. This was sinister. And for the first time, I felt there was danger, proper physical danger. What was I to do? Let myself in and tell her I disapproved of the lad who had just entered? It was like one of those what if moments you see in sci-fi films like Back to the Future or Turn Left in Doctor Who or The City on the Edge of Forever in Star Trek. The decision that you make now will change the future. In one timeline, I pictured tabloid headlines of Sally murdered and me saying, oh, if only I'd gone with my instincts and knocked on her door. Well, in another timeline, I pictured a furious Sally giving me the sack after I'd burst into her house as she had tea with the young man who was explaining the charity work he was doing to take knives off violent youths, and that he was also thinking of setting up a shelter for orphaned disabled kittens. Speaking as an astrophysicist, this was like Schrodinger's cat. Both outcomes potential but uncertain. And I wouldn't know until I'd opened the box and seen the quantum superposition collapse into one or the other reality. I mean, how many LGBTQ people get harassed because someone doesn't like the look of them? Yet wasn't that what I was doing with this young man, being prejudiced against his looks? But then again, how many LGBTQ people would be alive if only others followed their gut instincts and bloody stood up and said something instead of being very English and saying out? What would you have done? Well, I know what I did. I asked myself, what would Captain Kirk do? And I came to the conclusion that Captain Kirk would never leave Sally alone with a thug with a big knife. Captain Kirk would stride in there, give the thug a sock on the jaw, and Sally would fall into his arms and ask, but what is love, Captain? Next instant, I was Captain Curtain up to a door. I let myself in as usual. Hello, it's only me. I've come to clean. I lied aloud. Silence. The rooms downstairs were empty, so I climbed the stairs. From her bedroom, I heard a moan. So it was Rumpy Pumpy, I thought, my heart sinking at the idea that she would choose to sleep with a non-entity like him rather than a non-entity like me. Convinced that she had absolutely no taste in sexual partners, I turned to leave. Suddenly, there came a cry which definitely wasn't the throes of ecstatic passion. It was mortal distress. I must confess that me bursting into a bedroom where I knew two people were having sex felt almost as embarrassing as having someone burst into a room while I was having sex. But the second I heard that cry, I acted from instinct, just like James T. Kirk. I ran up to the door and I burst in. My first shock came from seeing that the bedroom was empty. The curtains were closed and clothes were scattered on the floor. My second shock came when a terrible scream emitted from the ensuite bathroom, followed by the sound of a terrible commotion. It really sounded like someone struggling for their life. The bathroom door was open. I looked in. My third shock came when I saw Sally and the young man in an embrace. Well, when I say young man, I mean lifeless, bleeding corpse. And when I say in an embrace, I mean being consumed. And when I say Sally, I mean 8 feet tall praying mantis. At this point, I must have fainted, because when the sudden enveloping darkness had vanished, I found I was lying on the bed with Sally sitting beside me, looking mortified, or as mortified as a giant praying mantis can look, and proffering a cup of tea with her spindly arms. Are you all right? She asked in a clicky voice. I stammered. Yes, I'm a liar, she sighed. Well, I was going to say a giant praying mantis, I replied. You're not going to eat me, are you? I've already eaten, she assured me, then added, Ethelreda, I think we need to talk. Needless to say, this shocked me. She'd never once called me Ethelreda. So we talked. She was an alien, an actual outer space alien living on Earth. Despite being a science fiction fan, I've always found the aliens in science fiction ridiculous. I mean, in the War of the Worlds, the Martians would have won if they'd been technologically advanced enough to have invented limsip. Admittedly, as a scientist, I've always presumed it was, with such a mind-boggling number of planets in the universe, aliens must exist. The fact that they hadn't contacted the human race just showed how intelligent they must be. She was from a planet near Proxima Centauri. She said it was a terrible place. I said it must be if living in Ealing was a preferable alternative. She explained how she came to Earth and that she could transform between her human form and her true form, but astrophysicist though I am, her explaining interdimensional quantum planes to me was like explaining Newton's Principia Mathematica to Kylie Jenner. She asked if I would keep her secret. I asked how many people she had eaten. 524. Just think about that. I mean, how did she stay so slim? I said I could keep secret the fact she was an alien insect, but not that she was a serial killer. She said I was a hypocrite. How many animals had I eaten in my lifetime? I said it wasn't the same. Animals were on a much lower level than humans. Sally pointed out that the gap between humans and animals in intelligence was around 500 times smaller than the gap between her species and humans. So, by my logic, she had more right to eat us than we had to eat animals. I didn't have a reply to this, so I just said that murdering innocent people was morally unacceptable. She pointed out that in deference to our quaint but backward framework of morality, she only ate people who were morally repulsive, such as rapists, paedophiles, jihadists, murderers, and people who scratched their names into the glass of train windows. She could only metabolize humans, so if she didn't eat them, she would die. There was no Quan alternative. And unlike so many of the animals that were my own meals, humans were free range. She was so clever, so effortlessly brilliant when she spoke. She said it was exhausting having to think down to our level and pretend not to be the hyper genius that she really was and that she was. As a consequence, incredibly lonely. Please don't abandon me, she pleaded. I was touched by this, but I told her I could not be her cleaner anymore. I don't want you to be my cleaner, she said. You're the only person who knows my secret. I just want someone who can like me for who I am. And in that moment, clarity suddenly struck like a photon torpedo from the USS Enterprise. As I looked into a green, triangular face, I realized the truth of the situation. We were alike. We were both from outside of London, though admittedly Proxima Centauri is a bit further than Sunderland. We were both terribly lonely. I was bisexual and she was bispecies, and also she told me hendecasexual. That's 11 types of sexuality. So, as a tear came to her grieving eye, I threw my arms around her prothorax and hugged her, and she hugged me back with her enormous, lethal forelegs. Sally and me now live together. Love has blossomed. The sex is out of this world. Well, literally. We are happy. We go to the theatre together, visit museums together, and once a fortnight, she lures a violent criminal to her house with offers of free sex and devours them, and I do the cleaning. So, with my beautiful, flesh-eating, serial-killing, giant praying mantis from outer space, I finally got what I always wanted. An ordinary relationship.